Welcome here, Punch Out Boxing, here with my old friend Jon Trethewey, giving you a bit of time to lick your wounds after Saturday's uh how should we put it? Disappointment
It
somewhat.
was a defeat. It weren't a drubbing, mate. It was 5-4 to score. The first one was 11-5 to me. No, look, it was good. Look, we actually loved the rivalry and the banter. I mean, it's not like fighters banter they have with each other. And Mark and I, well, Mark and Kyle and Jared, that's Team Nielsen. We work with them, so we're friends. But there is real rivalry there. I don't want to get beat. They don't want to get beat. So it's one of those where it's sort of like winning is important. But again, cliche and a bit cringy maybe. But the fight's won, as we'll go on to. The fans won, as we'll come on to in a minute. But yeah, losing 5-4 didn't sit pretty. And then when you wake up in the morning and on my WhatsApp group with the Nielsens, they've got an icon that's changed to Nielsen's 5 TM144. It's sort of like, here we go.
Yeah, because I
But yeah,
obviously I did catch Mark after the show, and we were
yeah,
looking
see that.
around for you. We were saying, is John going to drown his sorrow somewhere?
That is exactly what happened. I had a few friends and that about as much as I loved the interview with you, but they came to see me, which was nice for me. So we went and had a couple of beers after, drown the sorrows, as you say. But no, great show. I'm sure you'll agree. I'll let you ask the questions, but some of the fights were out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start in reverse order. We start with like some of the novices that looked good. Kieran Keane, he's really looking the part. When I spoke to him at the face-offs, he said he was going to put on a show. He did. Max Schultz and Tommy Petrel as well. Yeah, novices, early days, but great for them to be on a show like that, get some exposure and produce the goods.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Look, all three of them come away with a win. They're all young. They're all like 1-0s, 2-0s. They're all sort of like the next crop, if you like, of these when they start taking the fight titles at 6 fights, 7 fights, 8 fights. And as you said, great exposure. It was a great platform to do it at the O2 again. That's the second one we've done now. The first one worked. The second one was just as good. It's brilliant for these lads to get out there, and they have only had the odd one at York or etc. But getting to tell your fans, oh, we're at the O2, it's a totally different thing for them. So nice for them to get the wins on the card.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of, well, several fighters that were sort of making that slight step up. Finley, James, Joe Abercrombie, and Sonny Hardy. They're all in their sort of half dozen range. All of them had hard opponents. And yeah, part of their learning, again, necessary.
Great point. You clearly know your stuff, Rashid. You're so seasoned at doing these interviews because you're grouping these fighters in a similar thing, and them three are exactly there. You know, Finley James, ex-England captain, I think at amateur level, fantastic talent out of Tibbsy's gym. He doesn't have mugs in there, so you know we know how good he is. I think now no pressure on their team. I'll pick up the phone later. I've given him a day rest, but that's the kind of person you'd want to see in a step up now. I think he's ready. That was a step up already. You know, fighting Matt King the week before. Matt King um, lost on points, but he lost to Southern Area level. So if Finley's beating him just as easy, if not better, that tells you Finley's Southern Area. So I think let's see what happens next with Finley. But great performance and a different kind of test for him. Sonny Hardy, I think that's him at 8-0 now. He's always been with us. We're not our favourites, but he has to be one, doesn't he? Clearly, he sells like a machine. He's loyal. He's with Kev. He's a great boxer. A very, very good boxer, in my opinion. So let's see what come next for him. Similar kind of conversations that have got to be had now, I think. And the other one's Joseph Abercrombie. You know, we had him. I think he was on the Harrow show. Didn't know much about him. I can't think what he is now. Is he 6-0 or 7-0?
That's
And
six
then
to
he's
know.
come. Yeah, then he's come on this show. So I don't know too much about him, but again, he's sold well. They've conducted himself really, really well. The dad's fantastic to deal with, really nice guy, and that we look forward. In fact, I'll let the cat out of the bag now because it probably won't be put out on socials before it's announced. But Joseph will be fighting on the Chelsea show a week Friday.
Oh, fab. Because yeah, his fight with Jonatas, the Brazilian, it was strange in that it got messy, but it was still entertaining because Jonatas he gives it to the prospects, and that might have been Joe's first sort of experience of that.
And that's why they get matched like that. You know, like Eddie's done a great job of matching with us. Carl matches as well, doing those kind of fights are what you need, because everyone, when you do go for that title, it's nice if you've got a little bit of a someone tall, someone short, someone southpaw, you know, someone who's messy, you know, someone will take you around, someone that's going to come forward, someone that'll fight off the back foot. All those kind of tests that you need help you get ready, and that's just another tick box for that. You know, he'll be out again. It won't be for a big title war 50-50 then, but I'd imagine after the Chelsea fight for Joe, that'll be a conversation at his team, and we'd happily assist there if they want us to try and help him with titles.
Yeah, fabulous. All three of them fighters are well worth keeping an eye on. Now, a fight that was relatively early on in the show, but I thought was almost going to steal it. Osgood against Forrest. That first round, I told Liam this after the fight. That I thought, wow, okay, it might have been too soon for you because we know Onda's got that great amateur pedigree. But you know, he recovered, made a fight of it. In the end, it was a draw. I know Onda's team weren't happy, but Liam, you know, he says that he reckons it was fair and that in a rematch, he reckons he can do the job. What did you make of that fight?
Yep, I think when we did the running order, and I think we put it on third, it was me saying put it on early, and I was a bit like, I knew it was a great fight. We always are fair to fighters and we do it on ticket sales. Now, both those guys did okay on tickets, no criticism at all. But some of the lads you've already mentioned smashed their tickets. So our job's to keep as many people in the building, and the more you sell, that's the fairest way of doing it. The actual running order is one of the things that does my head in the most as a promoter, because every fighter, every manager, every dad, every trainer, oh, we're on like eighth or ninth, John, aren't we? And I'm like, well, no, you can't all be on eighth or ninth. So I literally do it as fair as you can. So that's why it was on a bit earlier. I thought it might steal the show. I'm not sure it was the best fight on the card. That's how good it was, but it was an absolute brilliant fight. Um, I know a lot of people think Onda was a little bit unlucky with the result. A draw. It was close. You know, I never sit on the fence. I do say it as it is. Did Onda do enough to win it? Maybe, in my eyes, maybe, but clearly not enough because it was a draw. Onda was coming forward. He was much more aggressive. He was throwing more punches. I'd like to see statistically, if I could get it, who landed the most. Certainly power punches, but Liam was throwing back. You know, he was countering a lot of those shots from Liam. I felt were off the back foot, but he was throwing in flurries. And you know, credit to Liam. Liam was 3-0 before that fight, and Onda was 13-0 with one draw. There's totally different level there in experience. I did think that Onda had only had 2 fights in 5 years. That inactivity may catch up with him, and he's 39, and that makes it a bit fairer. Whereas all Liam's fights have been in the first year of his career, so he's certainly more active and fresh, if you like. And I think that played through. You know, when Liam was getting tested, I was watching thinking, I'm not sure he's going to be able to sustain this. He'd come back with his own flurries, and that's what kept the fight competitive. And like all the fights on the card, they were competitive, as you can see, and the score was a draw. Shows you how great it was. I'd love to play it back. I already made some calls on that yesterday. I'd imagine it will get played back. When the fights are that good, quite often they want something on the line for it, you know, or it's not always as easy, but I'd imagine it's got to be replayed. If it's not next, then they'll have to do it again. But they've probably got a bit of a nemesis there. Liam's still undefeated, so he's got that, and Onda's still undefeated. So why wouldn't you play it back again and give the fans what they want? Great fight, really good fight for boxing.
Yeah, well worthy of a title, I think. Can you get something on the line for it, do you think?
Your problem with Liam's he's 3-0 with one draw now, so that makes it hard with the board. You know, whilst it was a great fight and everyone wants to watch it, and it's probably worthy of a Southern Area, for example, or a Commonwealth Silver, there will be other fighters at that weight that are maybe a bit more experienced with their record than Liam,
Hmm.
which the British, the sanctioning body, whether it's a Commonwealth, whether it's a Southern Area, they have to do their due diligence and treat fighters in the right order that it would be. That doesn't mean it won't be. Also, sometimes there's some that are a little bit further ahead and more experienced, but for one reason or another, they don't want the fight, or they're not ready for it themselves, or they're out injured, or the date doesn't suit. And it might be that we can nick something, but that's what we'll try and do. And even if, in my mind, even if it's like an eliminator and the board were going to sanction that, titles are important and fighters are in the sport to win titles. No one wakes up one day and says, I'm going to be a boxer to never win a title. They dream of winning belts. So you would never disrespect belts, but sometimes the belt might not be there, but the riches for the winner is, and even the loser comes again because you learn from the fight so much.
Mhm.
And I find that, it's, Marley Mason, he's lost a Southern Area fight and he's fighting a guy. It's not for a title because Marley's record won't sanction it, but he's fighting a guy at Chelsea who is a current WBF world champion and undefeated, I believe he is. So, that he will have learnt from them fights, Marley, and we believe Marley's got a chance in this fight. Whether he does or not,
We'll wait and see. We'll be coming to that shortly. On to the 3 title fights. Billy Pickles, your ringer from up north, got one over Marksman Connor. Billy, he's a good fighter, isn't he? Yeah, it was close as you'd expect for a title fight.
yeah, you're right. It was a title fight, and you didn't expect anything different. You had Conor Gray coming into it was the champion, and he was undefeated. I think he was 12-0. Billy Pickles was about 16-1. Billy's only ever been beaten by Lucas Ballinall on
Mhm.
my show about 18 months ago, and that was for an English title and a Commonwealth Eliminator itself. And then he came back after that loss and beat Keenan Wainwright in Sheffield, which Keenan's a Sheffield lad. All right, he's from Leeds, so it's not too far away, but he was the away fighter for sure. I fancied that to be close. And again, it shows how good the matching and the fights were. That's not singing our praises, but that fight was separated by 1 point for Billy. There'll be people that will justify Conor winning it, and there'll be people that justify Billy winning it. Yeah, Billy was on my team. He got the point there, but I know we like the fun of the rivalry, but I care about the fights and the fighters. Respect to both fighters. Both will come again. Conor will learn from that, just like we've mentioned other fighters do, and he will be in great fights going forward. And let's see now what Billy can do. But there's a lot of fighters around that weight. Our job's to try and whet the appetites of people and try and get better fights now. So we'll work with both of those. Billy's obviously with Dennis Hobson, who's family as far as I'm concerned, and Connor's with Mark Nilsson. So they should be kind of fights that we can go and make really good fights for those fighters.
And what about the co-headliner? I mean, already potential fight of the year, Dan Francis against Oliver Duffy. 2 guys that basically just exchanged power shots for 10 rounds, both hard as nails. I mean, it was mentally draining watching it. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, this is such a good way of putting it. It was a brilliant fight. When we made it, I was like, and that was the one everyone was talking about in the lead up, and I was getting much more noise about that than Billy Connor or Jake and Billy and Onda and Liam, and even some of the other 50-50s that fell through. This was the one that everybody kept talking about, and now we know why. Again, the result was by 1 point. I got a lot of people who think Ollie won, and I got a lot of people who think Dan won. I don't think anybody could argue either way. I think if you could score a fight after the event and the magnitude of how good that fight was, it'd be amazing if it was a draw, because I didn't want any fighter to lose. Obviously, Ollie's my boy and he's a Peacock lad, so that's my guy, and I wanted Billy to win. Ollie to win. There's no denying that. I felt Ollie started a little bit slow, if I'm really honest, but he definitely won the championship rounds for me, and it was just one of them. And when they knew it was a point, and I was just thinking, come on for Ollie and our team. But respect to Dan, and I've got to give respect to Dan. He's a good guy to deal with. He knows that I'm with the other camp, but we've had him 2 or 3 times on the show since I've worked with the Nilsons, because he's managed by the Nilsons, and we obviously do shows together. So when I have Peacock fighters on our shows, the Nilsons treat them like family. When we have Nilson fighters on, I treat them like family. There's lots of respect flying around. And that fight was as good as it got. Now, last year we won Fight of the Year at the Southern Area Awards, which was Louis O'Doherty against Marley Mason. The 2 boys won the fight, not necessarily us, but that was made by us on our show, and we're proud of that. I had a chat straight after. A couple of the board officials came straight to me and went, John, it's already been nominated for Fight of the Year contender already. So everybody, I was getting DMs in my inbox yesterday from people I don't know, people I do know, people who follow us who we don't really know, just saying, one of the best fights they've ever seen. I had someone tell me it was one of the best fights they've ever seen live, and that was from someone who goes to a lot of boxing. Both fighters will come back from that. Ollie will be hurting because he's lost. Dan won't be because he's won in terms of, but that they're both better than that level. They've proved that they're at that level. Ollie can come again and win English level, Commonwealth, who knows? And obviously for Dan, he's in a stronger position because he's got the belt and he's still undefeated. But again, watch this space for fights for both fighters. One's with a Peacock, one's with the Nielsen's. They're easy to get them in more fights. And hopefully we can get them both in fights that are as good as that. I don't think either of them need too many of them fights because there's too many miles on the clock when you have fights like that. And that can really sort of like make your career not as long as it could be. The art of boxing is to hit and not get hit, right? But yet the fans didn't always love Mayweather because they thought he was boring. Me aside, I didn't. But actually, when you watch people like that, true warriors who just stand toe to toe and go for it, it was like a playground fight for me. Where you have one of them fights at school that last 30 seconds, and if you're me, you threw about 3 haymakers and you were knackered. These lads did that for 10 rounds. The conditioning was great. They had a great platform for it, and that fight definitely stole the show. Really proud to have that on our show.
Absolutely, yeah, I concur. As someone who also goes to a lot of fights, yeah, it's definitely going to go straight into my scrapbook of great Southern area title fights. And as you said, both fighters, it should be easy now to say sell them on if you like, to, to maybe some of the bigger names. Dan Francis. I guess he's a legit challenger for the English champ now. Sean Noakes, and maybe Queensbury look at him. Oliver's managed by Martin, isn't he? So Martin's well connected with Queensbury. I'm sure he'll be able to, ask him to have a look at him.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, sadly, unless it's a draw, which is usually unlikely in boxing, there has to be a loser. The problem is people then think, oh, I've been beaten, or oh, he got. That doesn't matter. When the dust settles, both of those will learn massively what went well and what didn't go well, because there'll be things that both camps will think could have done that better. I could probably tell them myself from sat on my fat backside watching it. But they will learn and they will come back. And I wouldn't be shocked if you see either fighter, just because Ollie's been beaten, by the way, doesn't make him easy to match now. Sometimes when someone gets beat, it's easier for us to match him in the next one because they go, he's beatable. He's lost that 0 off his record. We'll have a go. I wouldn't look at that and think Ollie's weak. And in fact, they were just as good as each other. Like you say, they stood, they traded, and hats off to both of those. And I'm proud that I spoke to Marley Mason today. He rang me saying to do with the Chelsea show. We were just talking about some logistics next week because he's on there. And he went, that fight was better than mine. And I was like, well, fair play if you think that. I'm not sure it is. They were both great, but that's the fight that won Southern Area last year at the awards. So we hope that we'll be in with a shout, and if we don't win it, it means that somewhere some people are getting some real good treats because there's better fights than that. It'd be great if there were more fights like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck to both men. Let's hope they get their just due with their careers going forward. And of course, the headliner, your guy Billy Allington against Jake Henty. Mark agreed with me that maybe stylistically they didn't gel to make it as attractive a fight as the one we just talked about, but bit of a coming of age for Jake because he's been talked about in the scene as a talent for a while, and Billy's he's a hard guy to beat. So for Jake to win that, he's now in the picture, I guess, for some serious titles.
Yeah, I think you're right on what you and Mark have said there. Again, if I'm brutally honest, it felt a bit scrappy at times. There were bits about the fight I didn't like, so yeah, it wasn't the best fight for fans. Billy will come again. Billy's too good not to. He's one of the closest fighters I work with. As I said on an interview the other day, he's one of the only, if not only, person who made Dalton Smith look average, who's definitely not average. So if that's the case, we know what Billy can do. Did he do it on Saturday? No. Was that the best I've seen of Billy? Absolutely not. As I said, a couple of bits probably didn't go his way on the night. Jake, though, you're right. Maybe it is a coming of age. A lot of talk about Jake being very, very good. I didn't think that he wouldn't be. I've had Jake 2 or 3 times on my shows. I've seen the talent there. He beaten Alfie Winter when he was in an away corner. There was no away corner on Saturday because it was promoter, but he's gone in another fight there and he's beaten Billy Allington. So let's see now where we go with Jake, because you're right. Jake now we'll start having an eye on like Commonwealth, British, that kind of level, because he's shown he's a good fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just on there was a couple of dropouts. I think was it Paul Gordon was meant to fight Ethan George, and we had the two light heavyweights. Was it Williams and Baptiste? Those fights fell through.
Yeah, injuries, you can't help it in sport. We trust fighters. One of them had a perforated eardrum, the other one had a cut eye. I saw the evidence of the eye, for example. Not that I need to. If that's what we're being told, that's what it is. It's just very frustrating for everybody when that happens. If it happens 6 weeks out, you've got plenty of time to sort of like rematch it. When it's a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you're trying to find someone that A is camp ready for a fight of that magnitude, B wants to take it, and C maybe get some tickets done, because the show's still funded by tickets. We don't have the backing that the big boys have, as you know. So I can't just go and wave a check and say there's 20 grand or something, because we don't have that money that entices them. So if someone goes, do you know, John, if you gave me 4 weeks or 5 weeks, I might be able to do quite a lot of tickets here. But 2 weeks, yeah. So both those fights fell through. We tried to sort stuff really, really late. And it just couldn't be happened. But they'll both be back. We wish him Ethan well with his recovery. He's in another fight in Wales already, booked in about a month later, and Mark his recovery as well. And who knows, maybe you can get those matches rematched, or if not, we know that all those fighters are happy for 50-50s. So we work with all of those anyway. So we'll work with them to do what's right.
Sure. Okay, well, we wish them a speedy recovery and hope to see you out soon. All right, so that was Saturday night. You ain't got time to keep crying about it because you got some work to do before next Friday. Chelsea, the first ever show, just to remind people. So far, touch wood, everything's okay with that show. No pullouts, no injuries.
Don't say that phrase, Rashid. Pullouts. I don't know what you're on about. Yeah, we're all good. Look, I'm going to give credit here. It's a different matchmaker on this show, because the show isn't my show. Let's be clear. Dennis Hobson is the license holder here. I work very well with Dennis, as I said, almost like family. So there is me working with him. And the majority are TM14 fighters on there, if you like. So I'm proud of that. But it has been really hard work. So the reason I mention that is Dennis uses a different matchmaker. So Daniel Francis, I'll give him a shout out. When you're matching fights against foreigners, there's lots of paperwork that's got to be done. There's lots of the applications that got to be approved by the board. The board, rightly so, are very stringent on certain fighters. Some of them they wouldn't accept, and rightly so, because when you look at it, I had some opponents that might be 5-0, but question maybe their credibility, for example. And when you look at it, you think, right, fair play. Their job is to make sure that all the fighters are safe and that they're of a competitive nature. So he's had to work really, really hard, Dan, to get to where he is with the board as well. But I think we've now got, I haven't got it in front of me, 7 UK USA fights that are all flip a coin. Some undefeated, and 7 is fantastic. And then we potentially got 2 or 3 on the undercard that will sell some tickets for us as well. I think we're on 11 fights as we speak. There's some good ticket sellers on there. You've got Indabassi on there, monster ticket seller. He was in a fight, as you probably saw, be announced to fight for the full WBF world title against Lucas Balinal. Sadly, that fight has fallen through because Lucas will be looking at other things. Frustrating, but it is boxing. You've got Lucas Rowerig, George Groves' kid on there. Well, I say kid, sorry, he's a man. I certainly wouldn't say it to his face. It's just a phrase I use. But Lucas is, wow. We had his debut. You were there. He stopped Joel McIntyre, or they wouldn't let him carry on. He then stopped someone on the Sky show. I think he went the distance recently on the Channel 5. So he's 3-0, but he'll be looking again for another step up, and he's fighting an American. We got Oriel Wignat on there. He's last out on that last Sky Sports show in the away corner. He was fighting the guy from Scotland. I can't think his first name. Craig Forrest, is it? Or his surname was Forrest. And Oriel stopped him in the first round. So Oriel's now 9-0 with 8 knockouts. As I said, you've got Marley fighting Mandeep Jangra. Big fight for Marley. We got loads of others on there as well. Jack Hughes is on there fighting his hardest fight he's ever fought. Arnie Dawson's back on there, fresh off his win in Texas with us. So we've been loyal to those that are with us before. And we're really excited about this show at Chelsea.
Absolutely. Some of them fighters are going to be absolute bangers. I'm looking at Ignat against Johnson. They're both punchers. I mean, Johnson coming from like Texas, I guess, You know, he's
Yeah,
going to
what's his
come.
record?
He's 7-0 with 5 KOs. So
There you go, and he's fighting someone who's 9-0 with 8 KOs. So don't blink. They're
yeah,
cruiserweight.
and as you said, Lucas is obviously a prodigious talent. Do you have
Good
one
word.
in the back of your mind of one eye, one eye, and maybe matching them two against each other? Is
I'd
that
love to.
either of their
I'd
teams you
love
want?
to. I tried for it early doors, I'll be honest, and I got told where to go from the whole world because it's too big that to get that early.
Mhm.
I think the word prodigious that you said, very good word. I ain't used not that I've ever used it, but very good word, Rashid. That's exactly what Lucas is. The talk on the town is Lucas could go all the way. George believes in that. The evidence so far would suggest that George is right. So they're not matching him carefully. Jesus, he chucked him in with Joel McIntyre on his debut. I thought George was mad, but clearly George knew what he was doing. But it's still timing in the right bit. Equally for Oriel, that fight probably commands a lot of money and a big title on it, in my opinion. But I don't think you'd be too far away from it. It'd be nice for me to get it, or us to get it. If we do, great. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that maybe a year down the line in a big, big fight, a domestic battle. Orioles on an English license. Why couldn't you do that for like a British title? I guess the only thing is his age and where they're at. So Orioles already had 9 fights. Lucas has had 3. Rarely are you ever going to see anyone fight for British titles after 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. That doesn't happen. But the fight would be amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see how those two get on, and of course Marley's fight against Mangra. He's of Indian
Mandy.
descent. Jangra, yeah, sorry, Mandeep Jangra. But he's based in Miami. He was a top amateur. If he's based in Miami, you can bet your life he's pretty good.
He's trained by Roy Jones, and Roy will be here on the night. Obviously, he's captain of America. I believe in Marley. Marley's brilliant for the camera. He's a good talker. He trash talks, but he does it for the camera. He's actually such a lovely guy. But he'd fight anyone. Honestly, his debut, he was trying to fight Jeff Ofori at your call on my show because the fight didn't come through against Frank Arnold. And I was like, are you mental? And he was like, no, I want it. I want it. Anyway, he got told no because it just wasn't right for him at the time. But then he fought him in about his 3rd fight or something like that, and he got a draw. So the kind of people Marley lost in the fight of the year last year to Louis O'Doherty that was ridiculously close. Now the right person won because they didn't let him finish the fight, but Louis is an exceptional talent. We just talked about Dan and Ollie. Losing a fight of that magnitude doesn't mean you're not of a better level. It just means that on that night you weren't the best fighter, and the other guy you were fighting is at an extremely good level as well. So let's see what Marley does. You know what you get with Marley? You get what's on the tin. He will stand there a bit like them 2 lads the other night for 10 rounds, and it's a 10 round of that, and he will just stand and fight. So let's see if Mandeep can take that intensity. Mandeep's a little bit more seasoned. He's just won that world title out in the Cayman Islands. I was out there when he beat Conor McIntosh from Wales.
Mhm.
And he won that, to be fair and square. I felt sorry for the Welsh lads because I met them out there and spent the week with them, so I kind of wanted them to win. But Mandeep, let's see if he's ready for what Marley can bring.
All right. So that is the epic UK v USA rematch. A fortnight, well, just under a fortnight now, isn't it, at Chelsea? So yeah, you got anything more to tell us? I believe you've got a trip abroad. Anything you can tell us?
Yeah, we're off for a trip on Thursday, Dennis and I actually. So we're going to Vegas for a few nights. We won't get too carried away yet, but we're going for 3 nights to Vegas to meet the right people to get hopefully a show over the line for a bit later in the year. UK USA 1 was a huge success. UK USA 2 will be a huge success despite the blimmin' hard work. It makes sense to do UK USA 3. Dennis, that's his vision, that's his baby. He's nailed it. There's a lot of us working together to graft and pull it off. But Dennis wants to go and do UK USA 3. It would be right to go back there. We've got the contacts that we need in Vegas. Our job now is to go over there. We got a few site visits in some casinos on the strip. We're going to see some promoters, some managers, even pop to some gyms and see some fighters. I dare say Dennis and I will enjoy 1.5 maybe cheeky beers and wines out there. I might make him take me to a seafood restaurant because America's seafood restaurants are my best. So we'll have a good few nights as well, but it will be quite hectic because I think we fly on the Thursday. By the time you land at night, you've got 2 full-on days, Friday, Saturday, doing all that. We then fly back Sunday, where you fly overnight, land on the Monday, and the Americans are landing with us from all over the America to come and have this fight. So then we're straight into fight week next week, next week, which will be a lot busier than a normal one with press conferences, weigh-ins. There's lots going on, etc.
Busy time for you. Any more international shows planned for later in
Yes.
the year?
Yes, I won't say what they are because they're not signed and sealed yet. But Dennis seems to have contacts all over the world in other countries. You know, maybe East, a couple of different places East that haven't been done before. I don't like to say it too much yet because we still got to do it. But I think Dennis and I maybe need to pop somewhere else in a couple of months East to do exactly the same thing. He calls it a recce, you know, go out there. It's quite hard to do these shows with people abroad when you haven't had that face-to-face connection. I know you have in the modern world now, you've got like Zoom and Teams and things like that. But sometimes, you know, sitting down, having a coffee, a beer if you're me, having some dinner together, getting to know people, it shows that commitment. You know, it's not cheap for Dennis and I to just fly out there for 3 days, but it's right to go out there to meet the right people to get these shows up and running. And that will probably be the same later in the year for 1 or 2 other venues. I don't imagine that we will do. There's a few things flying around, but we may well do 2 more abroad this year, Vegas being one and one other. But why wouldn't we want to bring the Americans back over here, or even another country over here, to do those? So we enjoy that. But York Hall is our sort of like bread and butter. We enjoy doing these O2 ones. We maybe do them a couple of times a year. It's our job to help, you know, bring this talent through. You mentioned it at the top end of the interview, sort of like the ones that got the platform of 1 and O's, and then you've mentioned the ones that were 6 and O's and 7 and O's. You know, these are the ones now that we need to start getting ready. Some of those lads you've mentioned, why wouldn't they come to America, to Vegas? Maybe they will.
Wow, exciting times for TM14 Promotions. All right, well, John, great to get your views. Like I said, I know you're still disappointed, and
I'm still sulking.
still sulking, rightfully so. You should never take a defeat with in good grace. That's what Bill Shankly said. So yeah. All right. I know you're still a very busy man, and so I'll let you get back to work. And yeah, I will catch up with you next week.
Cheers, Rashi. Catch you later, mate. All the best.